In Photoshop, go to the Layers panel and create a new layer. This little plus just creates a new layer you can add things to. And I'm going to add a selection to it. I'm just going to use this, a lasso tool. I've got a feather of 38, and that creates a nice blurry selection. And you can then just randomly make a squiggle. And that will create a selection. And it's great to make a random design. Edit, and then down to stroke. So edit and stroke and set the colour. Now I'm going to go for a fairly dark colour, but make it grey. You can make it red, green, blue. That's perfectly reasonable as well. Create all kinds of colours. Click OK. And I'm going with centre and width of 50. Click OK there. I can apply it again. So edit and down to stroke. But this time I'm going to go with 30 or 20. You can make it just smaller. And again, you can just vary the colour. You don't have to go with greys. You could go with a red or green. But I'm going to make a slightly lighter colour here. And click OK, and then there. Now that's been applied on there. And again, you can just keep applying it. Again, at any point, just add, maybe go 10, and then colour, and click OK. And you can see the result. But what you can then do, because it's on a layer, you can apply layer effects. So I'm just going to remove the selection now. I don't need the selection. So I've got this design. You can now see, because of those applied strokes, you've got this lovely sort of dark in the centre. You've got this blurriness around the edge. And you can create literally millions of designs using this approach. Go to Effects and Bevel Emboss. You can also do it in the Layer menu and Layer Style. So Bevel Emboss. And with that, you can go here, Inner Bevel. Just go for that. And you can vary the depth, size. You can just see as you tweak that, you can see you get a whole variety of different results simply by changing the size, as well as soften. You can make it softer. Maybe you might want to highlight this sort of ridge there. Also, you can change the angle. So you can tweak it, and that will create, again, different designs. Now you could use this as a brush. You can also use it as a pattern, and many, many more things. Also, you can go here and gloss contour, and you can vary it. So you don't have to go with the default one. So you can see by just clicking here, the gloss contour, all kinds of different designs can be created. And you can use some of these others as well. But click OK. Now I don't want the background. I want to remove it because I want to define this as a pattern. So I'm just going to go over here and select it and delete. Yes. So now you've got this design. Now I can select it using the rectangular. You need to use the rectangular tool. So rectangular marquee tool. And then select it. Make certain you don't go over the edge. You don't cut through that edge there. You could, of course, if you want to. You can create all kinds of designs. But if you want really beautiful flowing design, don't go like this. I'm just going to show you like this. You can, again, if you want. If that's your selection you want for your fill, perfectly reasonable. But I want the full thing, so I'm just going to select the whole lot. The feather's 0. You can't define it as a pattern if the feather is anything else. So edit, and down here to define pattern. Click OK. Now I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to go to another document. So in here, I'm going to apply a fill using that pattern that I've just created. And I went for grey because you can create loads of different colours. You could go with reds, greens, blues if you want the thing to look very red. So edit and fill. Now the document's about 2,500, that sort of size. And also the fill itself is that size. Now, what you can also do, make certain you select this. Because if you don't select it, you end up selecting the previous one. And you think, why have I got that result? Also, make certain you click this script on. Now, sometimes Photoshop will just ignore it. And it will just apply the usual pattern. I don't know why, but I always try to remember to click and go with random fill, along with contents being pattern. Now, the result isn't always perfect. So click OK, and you can see there you've got your density 9.8, 0.1. I'm going for fairly small. Rotate and also randomise all the colours, etc. But click OK, and you can see what happens. Doesn't look a bit like the actual preview. And unfortunately, Photoshop is not great in that it doesn't have an edit, fill, repeat option. So edit, fill, just apply it 5 or 6 times. Click OK, and you can see edit and fill. Now, once you've done this, all you've got is a layer. Now, you could, of course, at any point stop, and it's a perfectly reasonable design. You can see, like I say, it's a pity it doesn't look like that. But you can see as you apply it over and over again, now you can fade the fill, but you can't repeat it. It's a very odd thing to miss out. Click OK. And then, as I mentioned, you can, of course, have any kind of thing. And, of course, you could create different selections, and you'd have different fill patterns that you could apply to this. So they don't all have to be the same. So at this point, I'm going to stop, because I think that's reasonably filled, but you could fill the entire lot, 10, 15 goes. Now, you can go over here to the layers panel. Just click here, and you can use this design. You can transform it. You can see here's this, it's just a layer, so you can resize it, move it around. You could also apply some effects to it. So if you want to, you could apply filter and go to Liquify. But you can also apply displacements and distortions to this design. So let's just go back to what it was before unlocking it. And you can save it. So File and Save. So File and Save As. And you can use this if you save it as a PSD file. I'm just going to do that. Test.2.psd. You can call it anything you want. Just save it as a PSD file. And then you can go to Filter, and you can go up here to Filter Gallery. Filter Gallery, you can then go here to the Distort section in Glass, and you can create millions and millions of distorted designs using that design you just created, applying it to itself or to other images. Just go here to the texture, click here and load texture. I'm going to go with the test, obviously the one that I've just created, but here's the other one. You can see designs there I created earlier. But you could fill it, obviously, like you can see it's a lot more intense. Click load. Now once you see that, you've got the distortion set to the max. Scaling, you can vary it. Because it's got like any central area, it doesn't particularly matter with this. You can scale it and you won't notice any sort of issue with it. Now, if you go too small, you might see a pattern repeating over and over again. So I suggest 150. But the smoothest, 15, perfectly reasonable. Click OK. And you can play it again, of course. You can always filter and filter gallery repeat. The result is never that great, I think, on the second apply. But now you can use this distortion. And you can, of course, if you want to, you can duplicate layers and combine them as well. That's another option. But I'm now just going to unlock this, because what I want to do is I want to transform it now. So I'm just going to use the Move tool and drag it around and resize it. Just a little bit. I don't want to resize it massively. I want to make it something like that. Press return. I'm going to apply a filter to it, and that's Liquify. So I've got this layer, filter, and Liquify. So Liquify, go in here, and you can see the layer there. And just use this one. First one, Forward Warp tool. And you can just drag. Now, what I like to do is size, drag out 540. Make it fairly small. You can make it massive there. But just drag it out, just at those angles there. Maybe push it in a bit, up to you. A little bit there. But generally, drag outwards. And then you can repeat it. So I've got this design. It's now looking like, wrapping paper. Very unusual wrapping paper, but wrapping paper. No, or maybe a pillow design. I don't know. A very, very poorly. Click OK. Well, now what you can do is you can resize it. And also you can rotate it, because I don't want to apply the same effect. I want to apply the same liquify, but I don't want the end result to be just keeps pushing out in the same area. I just want it to be different. So filter and liquify. Now, of course, I could just go and reapply liquify, the filter, and change all the settings, but I'm just applying what was previously set. But at this point, I can then again resize it, I can rotate it again, and literally you can create all kinds of weird and wonderful distortions using this approach. Filter and liquify, you can see it's pulling out, and you can continue to apply it the same. That's what happens if you apply it 3 or 4 times using the exact same setting without rotating it. You'll just see it get dragged further and further out. But it creates some very interesting designs using this approach. And of course, what you can then do is, once you've transformed it like that, you can, if you want, it's a layer, you can go to layer effects, so you click effects there, bevel and emboss. You can add a bevel to it. Maybe colour overlay. Obviously, if you've got it as normal, you won't see anything, but you can always go for darken, and you can then create sort of different designs that way, or multiply. Get this lovely golden effect using orange. Maybe difference, which always looks a bit psychedelic, very weird and unusual. Exclusion, and so on. I'm just going to go without that. But you can do all kinds of colour effects with that design. Click OK. And now, hold down the Alt or Option key on the keyboard. That's the key thing, depending on if you're on a PC or Mac. And then just drag. And then you can reposition them. It's duplicated, you can see the layers there. And of course, if you want, go to Filter, Liquify. So you can distort it again. You don't have to stop there. Now, of course, you can push it too far. It will start to look pretty distorted and not great. But again, you can duplicate that one and so on. And you can fill the entire screen. Now, obviously, beyond this, there's a bit more of the document. But you can create all kinds of stunning sort of wave warped designs very quickly using this approach. Now, once you're happy with things, you could select all the layers. So all layers can be selected. You can turn them into down here, smart object. So layer menu of smart objects, convert to smart object. So it becomes a single smart object. And you can duplicate that as well if you want to do that. And you can always then go back and edit it later. But also then you can go to Filter and Liquify, apply Liquify to the whole design. And you can then, let's say, distort this so you can stretch it out even further. So you can see you can create some truly weird and wonderful shapes using this approach, and click OK. And it might respond. And then filter and maybe go to distort and wave. Again, you can push it too far. Number of generators, I would suggest 1, set the wavelength, amplitude, and then randomize. And you can see literally millions of different designs can be created using this approach. Click OK. Filter, wave, randomize, click OK, and so on.